Oh, yeah. What's going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It's Thursday, December 7th. Can you believe it? 12 months this whole year, 2023. I'm going to mess up the 4 starting in January about 15 times before I figure out which year it is, but that's neither here nor there. Last night we had another edition of AEW's Dynamite product on TBS. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And more importantly than that, it is the daily broadcast Throwback Thursday, as usual, which I'm definitely excited to get into as well. Before I do, though, I do need to introduce the panel. We've got the usual suspects all the way out in Philly. Our head of opinions, Anthony Ricciardi. Dude, how are you doing? How'd you like Dynamite? And how are you feeling on this fine Thursday afternoon?
Doing all right. It's been a long week. We're opening and closing the show with Betrayal. And Dynamite was essentially quite predictable as far as the matchups, which I'm sure we'll get into.
100%. I am stoked to get into it as well. Before we do, I got to introduce my other co-host this evening, the Tuesday Night Delight, all the way at the DMV and not the one you complain about. I'm talking out in Maryland, Virginia. Shad Huda, how you feeling on this Thursday afternoon, my friend?
What's good with you, boss? I'm good, man. I'm alive and breathing. Dynamite was solid. There's some stuff I liked. There's some stuff I didn't like. And you're gonna hear me explain it all. So let's get into it.
Absolutely. Let's jump into the main event of the evening. Right out of the gates, we've got Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage. It was the main event last night. It is our curtain jerker on this daily broadcast, but that is neither here nor there. We are talking Edge, Christian. We're talking two legends, dream match scenario. Yes, there were some complaints online maybe about like, why do you give this away on a free show? Come on, man. This is awesome storytelling. We had Shayna Wayne, the widowed wife of Buddy Wayne, cracking Edge right over the head. We had the most unexpected finish I've seen in a while, and people may argue against this, but who in the world had on their bingo card Christian Cage with a foot on the chest? Who had that one? I'm just saying, almost nobody. I enjoyed the match top to bottom, and I gotta say this. My mama, Lori Taylor, I'm a mama's boy, fully admit it. If I took a concerto from anyone, Adam Copeland, neither here nor there, whoever it is, my mom's cracking that dude over the head with the title if she's got the shot. I know my mom that well. At least that's what I think. I'm going to toss this one to you first, Anthony. How did you feel about the match? Nick Wayne's mom finally pulled the trigger here. And do you feel like I do, where this is just chapter 1 of a book that might be real entertaining?
Yeah, this is one of those stories that AEW kind of inherited that's built in for the long-term time fans. 25 years we've been following the Edge Christian story, from tagging together, fighting against one another, being separated, and now they're back together to essentially ride out the remainder of their careers. This was a match that when they announced it, my first thought was, I really thought you would have saved this to World's End. I really thought that was going to be your big selling point, one-on-one, first time in 13 years. This, you save it for World's End. Then, okay, it's in Canada. I get it. Probably the last time, maybe one of the last times that they get to wrestle each other in essentially home territory. So I got it. The betrayal, My only complaint with that was, did you not prep her beforehand? Because it really was the worst shot in the head I think I've seen in a long time with a title belt. Like, I get it. I get the motivation behind it. She hurt, she hates them both in theory. But she hates Edge more because it's more recent. Maybe. I would have preferred if it was a better looking shot. I know she's not a pro, but you couldn't have practiced that at any point. Um, that's my only complaint. Like,
She's definitely not winning an Oscar, but I got to give her
yeah,
credit for stepping up and giving it a shot.
I mean, in the back, you didn't prep it at all. Um,
Maybe they did.
I mean, maybe I don't know. She keeps being on screen, so I don't want to say stage fright because she has appeared on screen. It's not like it's her first appearance. This is not the end of it. It's going to go to World's End, presumably. It was I was okay with the match. It was very cool visually for, at least for me, being somebody that's watched the entire journey with these two, to see them across the ring from one another. When you look back just a few years ago, these guys were on the shelf. They were done. They were not wrestling. Their careers were forced away from them. And now they're across from one another fighting each other. That's something special. And that's what I took out of that. Anytime you see them in the ring, it's added bonus. They're in overtime, the two of them.
I totally agree, and especially with that sentiment, I will say with the Shayna Wayne thing, she's obviously not going to win any Oscar anytime soon, or anything like that. But it does take a lot of guts to get in the ring. Was it the best swing ever? Probably not. May have been actually prepped. One of those things that in the moment, right? You only get one take. It's one of those unique things about pro wrestling. It's one of the things we love about pro wrestling. But I do believe that it landed enough that I'm willing to accept it. We have to at some point suspend disbelief as fans
Oh,
anyway.
absolutely,
And,
absolutely. But
in
but
my eyes, I view it like she cracked them. I'm kidding, but
it's just a shame that, like, a match like that gets
yeah,
soured by a moment that was. Listen, she's not a pro, so you know that going in.
the setup was really good too. Though that's the part that I think is a little bit frustrating. Right, it was so close to perfection, and then just
Hmm.
if the belt shot itself looked slightly better.
Well, you knew the hesitation. You're like, okay, she's clearly hitting Edge. She's not hitting Christian. Like,
Yeah.
that was the one thing you knew. You're like, okay, there's a hesitation here. We know.
Boom. It was a bit telegraphed in that way, but either way, I completely understand the booking. And like we kind of talked about, this feels like chapter one of a story that's going to actually be really, really, really fun to see play out over like the next 6 to 8 months. It
I hope
could
they
be
deliver. I
given
do.
100% shot. What were your thoughts though on the main event last night? Our first topic today, and more
Mhm.
importantly, Shayna Wayne's involvement as well as Christian retaining the TNT title.
So I'm mild on it. Um, I thought the match was phenomenal, leading up to what we had in the ending. I thought they told a good story. I thought Edge just mollywhopping him in the beginning of the match, going to town, just throwing him across outside and whatnot, was really good. I think these two guys they're professionals, man. They're both legends, Hall of Famers, respectfully, in their own manner in pro wrestling, like even past WWE, with all that Christian's accomplished, and they did it so well. And then we get to the ending, which I don't necessarily have a problem how telegraphed and how you know we knew that this was going to happen. But like y'all said, man, it's how it was delivered. And that minor thing can make or break a storyline and can make or break something that can be legendary to just being all right. Like I like the whole storyline. I've raved about how I think Nick Wayne is gonna be the person that is gonna really transcend throughout this entire storyline, being in it with Edge and Christian, and eventually having his upcomings where I think he will dethrone whoever is listed as the TNT champion. But my Duke's got to hit a little harder. My Duke's got to do a little bit more. You put people in the prime time positions in the main event and storylines like that. I mean, we could cut it some slack, but this is cinema. You can't mess up the movie like uh, uh the cherry on top of it's spoiled is going to make that Sunday not as delicious. And that's kind of what she did. They had like an expired rotten cherry on top of this beautiful Sunday that they created. Um and it didn't make the Sunday enjoyable. You could pick it off, throw it and eat the rest of it, but it I don't know. It felt a little to me on that. But besides that, I mean, I do like this added element to the storyline. I think what Christian is doing with this entire patriarchy and how he's able to get Nick Wayne's mom into the fold and whatnot is going to be interesting because I don't think she's gonna all of a sudden, to your point, become a member of this, maybe,
Yeah.
be a additional partner to Christian. I think she's still gonna have her guard up, and I think she's doing it to protect her son. And I think it adds that next element to, is Nick Wayne gonna be the heel, or is mom gonna try to wheel Nick Wayne out of Christian, who's the super heel? I'm not sure. That's the beauty of it, and that's the story that needs to be told. But we gotta get her up. If you in position, if you gonna be in this feud, you gotta get her up to speed on stuff like that. But all in all, it was solid. I liked it. It was one of my favorite things on the show, and I'm definitely more so excited to see these two run it back if they do it at World's End. I said it yesterday. I didn't have an issue with them fighting last night. I thought it being in Canada was fitting. It was very important for the story and for the moment for both of these guys. I mean, I love what Anthony just said. These dudes are in overtime. Like we have to appreciate the time that they have in this ring, especially against each other. These dudes are, and the crazy thing is this: it's not like we see a lot of older wrestlers wrestling and looking like super shells of themselves. These dudes are working just as good as some of these people in their prime. Like, let's not forget, Edge has had classic Mania matches within the last few years. Him, Danielson, and Roman was a classic match. Him and what's his name, Seth Rollins was a classic match. Like, he can still work, and Christian can still work. So
Heck,
I
this
think,
year at Mania against Finn Balor and Hell
yeah,
in a
him and
Cell.
Finn,
Mhm.
exactly, yeah. Like, the dude can still work, and Christian is having he's made a mid card title that a lot of people say doesn't matter feel very interesting again, and that's just kudos to him as being a master heel. But all in all, it was solid, man. Just the ending, yeah.
I hear you 100%. And my mom even also shouted you out on Molly Wop is an awesome description shot. Shout out my mom. I
Thank
like
you, Mama Taylor.
100%. Numero on Superfly with another comment. Excuse me. I think Nick's mom isn't joining Christian's family to be friends. She's joining to get revenge on Adam. An old saying, the enemy of the enemy is my friend. I could not agree more. I think that is the whole thing. It's
I
Mama
I
Bear.
agree with that too.
It's
I
Mama
feel
Bear, right? She saw him get
Yeah,
concertoed by Edge.
I,
sure.
I I almost think a better spot would have been, instead of putting her on the spot to swing a title that she's never done before, I'd almost would have preferred if she would have handed Christian the title. Christian looks at her confused. She slaps him across the face like she hates
You
them
know
both.
what? To be
And then
totally
Christian could
honest,
have hit
I
him with the
love
belt.
that
no,
idea
to
a
your
lot
point, how
more.
about stands in the middle of the two, though, not even hands it, kind of goes like she's going to toss it to Edge and then turns and just flips it to Christian.
But
That is,
I think she needs to slap Christian too. It's showing I don't like you either, but
but
he hurt my boy.
he hurt my
You,
son.
yeah, that's what I would have done.
kind
Instead
of
of
like
her
when,
100%.
kind of like when Heyman like slid the, or y'all.
between
An
the
idea would be like
between
how Heyman
Roman
slid
and
that
Brock.
title with
Yes,
the Roman and Brock.
yes,
Yes.
Could have been
Yes.
kind of been like that. So, but
that's
side
where
note,
my head was with that.
side
Yes,
note, numero one Superfly would be a cool luchador wrestler name, by the way. I just gotta say that
It
out
was
yes.
always. And thank you, Numeron Superfly, for tuning in as always,
there.
my friend. But with that, let's move on to our next segment. Let's talk about the Continental Classic.
Huh.
Little tournament action. Let's get
Okay.
into it. We got John Moxley, or as our good friend Cardi Cornett likes to call him, John the Plumber Moxley. But I believe he's better than that. It's John Moxley we've got here. The ace of AEW, as he called himself a couple weeks ago, maybe self-appointed nickname. I don't know. But either way, against Roosh, who historically, I've always had an interesting opinion on. I think Rush is immensely talented, but I don't get him. I don't get it. I haven't figured it out yet. Rush has been on fire in this tournament. Thought this might have some funk in it. It really didn't. Moxley went over pretty obviously. Anthony, what were your thoughts on this one as a whole? And you see Moxley advancing out of his group in this tournament?
Yeah. The first thing is self-appointed nicknames. As you know, Clark, not a big fan of people with self-appointed nicknames.
Kobe was the only one. Called
Yeah.
himself the Black Mamba, and it stuck.
Yeah, MVPs and stuff like that. I don't like self-appointed names. This is where the shovel's going to end up coming out. This tournament, it's for a Triple Crown title. It does not feel important to me. It feels telegraphed. It's Moxley and Swerve at the end. Swerve should go over. When they announced the 3 matches for Dynamite last night, I looked at them and went, Moxley goes over, Swerve goes over, Jay White goes over. It's pretty predictable. Oh, look, all the Ring of Honor people, they're losing. My problem with Rush has been, and I've said it before, the dude doesn't know how to sell. He does not know how to sell a match. You literally end the match with a sleeper hold. It was a competitive match. It was a decent match. But he puts him in like a sleeper hold, and as soon as the bell rings, Rush pops right back up like it was nothing. That's his problem. Out of the 2, Dragon Lee is the more, I think he has the brighter future out of the 2. I think Rush is going to be limited long term because he doesn't know how to get his opponents over. He doesn't know how to sell. He wants to get all his stuff in, but he doesn't sell. His best match was against Danielson, and that was because of Danielson. And even then, he couldn't sell. Moxley, it's pretty telegraphed that he's going to the finals, and Swerve's probably the one he's going against. And that was even before last night's interaction between the 2. Again, telegraphed. And this tournament should feel important. It should be getting somebody over. In this case, Swerve. But if the tournament's not important, it doesn't feel important, does Swerve or whoever wins this thing get the maximum benefit of whatever this tournament was going to be?
I agree with so much of what you said there, especially the non-sale on the choke. So he got choked out. It was referee stoppage. He didn't tap.
Yeah.
Right? Like he got choked out.
Yes.
And then
that's one of the first things I put in our group chat after the match was over. And me and Anthony
took his ball and walked home.
We agreed to it. That was really, really abrupt. Like
the only time
I thought it was disrespectful.
Honestly, the only time I've ever seen that happen, this was more than a couple years back. Austin Aries was the Impact World Champion. He was losing the title to John Morrison.
No, that's right.
Literally, on pay-per-view, he pops up like it was nothing and walks out. Yeah, live on pay-per-view.
It looked like that.
Immediately came to mind when I saw that.
It's a great shout too, Anthony, because honestly, like I felt the same. I was watching. I'm like, the choke was delivered. But what was interesting though is he seemed to sell the choke inside of it. I'm wondering if he didn't just have a rear naked choke in deep.
Because he knew
Moxley has trained at Extreme Couture in Vegas. I'm wondering if he didn't just pull one real tight and have it in deep. I'm not knocking Moxley if he did that. Because
it wouldn't.
How else are you going to get Rush to sell at this point?
It would not shock me if Moxley, knowing the type of professional Moxley is, was getting frustrated at the fact that Rush was not selling and went, I'll make you sell this.
Yeah, he knows how to deliver everything.
Yeah.
And I look at the
disrespectful
the
to the
key
TV
is
product too,
you look at sleeper holds and the way that they're applied, and then you look at where the point of his elbow was.
Mm-hmm.
That was a legitimate blood choke. And now I'm not saying that he cranked it 100% or it was intentional. I'm not knocking Moxley for it in the least.
You're just saying he's capable of it.
It would make sense, and he's totally capable. We've seen his jiu-jitsu history.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in that position, why would you not? I guess.
You want to know what the issue is, though? And obviously I don't know him at all, and I don't know what goes on in his mind. But just respectfully speaking, sometimes I think people want to be that dude where they put all the offense in and they forget that it's a two-way street. It takes
Yeah.
two to tango. The
They want to
people
get
that
themselves over.
sell, the guys who sell well last in this business for a long time. You look at Austin Theory. We complain about him all the time. The kid
100%.
sells like crazy,
Well,
It's
and
his
there's a
best
reason.
attribute in my eyes. To
It
your
is his
point.
best attribute. Matt
Yes.
Riddle was the same way too when he
Yep.
was still in WWE. The guy sells like $1,000,000, and that's why
Shawn,
you get
Dolph Ziggler,
opportunity. Dolph Ziggler is probably the greatest at it.
one of the best sellers ever.
Shawn
Sean too,
Michaels
of course,
is
Sean too.
Sean's the
fondly
best.
remembered for his selling. Like, I mean, legitimately, other than the Hogan match, but really,
It's funny.
Shawn knows how
He
to
was
sell.
proving a point, and in hindsight, he proved one.
It's still memorable. It's yeah. We'll get to that on a throwback.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to talk about that topic, Pierre.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that one.
It'll be during the summer because
But I mean, to that point, like it's interesting because Roosh knows selling it after the match makes me think. I thought he was selling it properly in the hold. Maybe he was being held, for lack of a better term.
Well,
You're
right?
working with Moxley. You need to do everything right because he's
Yeah.
the top dog in the entire company.
The only other thought I can have, and Clark, you would know better than I would, if he legitimately choked him out and lost consciousness, and he
No,
suddenly
he'd have to pick his legs up, and Moxie would know better
Okay.
than that. He
I
would.
was going to say, like, could it be like a sudden?
You'd have
know,
to get the blood back to his brain
uh-huh.
because it's a blood choke. You'd pick their legs up
What did
Okay.
like
commentary
a
say?
wheelbarrow.
Commentary said, "Oh, he
Oh,
must have heard the bells ringing. He got up immediately after that because he heard that Moxley won. Like he got up way before he got up before Moxley did."
He just stormed out of there.
I swear, when the AEW commentary team tries to cover for stuff, they do a worse job. You're almost better off ignoring it.
I think both sides do a tough job when it comes to covering.
but I'm
I hear
saying,
where you're coming from.
Corey Graves not good at that either.
No,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, for like example, like they've had a couple of them recently where it's like, really?
It's like hard to be because Graves will do the thing where Graves. That's why I think he's a great commentator. Though is he's so honest. He'll like almost slip that like that this was a whiff, like unintentionally. But I think that's what makes him so good is like it's unintentionally comedic even when he does that.
Oh yeah.
But let's move on to the next match. Same tournament. You brought it up earlier too, Anthony. But I'm gonna toss this one a shot. Let's talk about Swerve. Strickland and Mark Briscoe. I'm a huge fan of both. Swerve went over. It made the most sense. Shad, how did you like this match? I think Swerve is so obvious for the finals, but I do like that we've seen quality wrestling along the way.
What does this mean? Oh, that 9 up, baby. 9 points. Look, this next to Kingston and Danielson, I think this was the best match in the entire Continental Classic thus far. I thought they had a banger. These guys had a banger. A lot of what Anthony just previously said does also carry on to this because Mark Briscoe did not win one match, but like I told you guys yesterday, it's how they booked it. It's how the cards fell. I would have personally gave Briscoe the win over Roosh whenever they had that match. They probably have a little bit more invested into what they see in Roosh, but Swerve has to look strong. Swerve is the most valuable wrestler on the AEW roster in this current day. And I said it yesterday, and I will say it every time that I am given a topic to talk about him. There is so much weight in his like presence as a wrestler that you got to let him win this entire thing, right? Like I know this entire tournament in theory is set for Danielson because he wants to do the G1, but there's way more benefits of allowing Swerve to just go clean through this and win it all because you got an opportunity to build the next megastar on your company with Swerve. Like I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to watch his they had like a YouTube where they did a little interview after, but he put all the accolades out there, man. Everything he does in the ring and outside the ring is top tier. And I'm happy that he won. He's got the 9 points. Him and Moxley next week is going to be very, very intriguing. I'm very curious to see how they book around that. We might see the first tie, who knows? But you gotta ride with the hot hand, man. I just don't see a reason for him to take any losses, especially how he won that Hangman match and how much of a classic that is, and everything he's doing outside of wrestling, to the music, to all of that. Like Swerve is really that dude right now, and if anybody is positioned to get that AEW belt off of Max whenever they're ready to take it off of him, you slide that baby right on his waist, and you got yourself the next best thing since butter and toast.
Dude, I am in total agreement on one very specific thing that you said, which is
Not all of it.
beyond this, all of it, most of it, most of it,
No.
beyond the results of this tournament. Please, please, I'm begging you, Tony Khan. I'm actually begging you personally here. Put Swerve Strickland and Maxwell Jacob Friedman on a poster, 1-on-1, on the marquee, right on the headline.
Mhm.
Main event, do it right. 1-on-1. Make it simple. This is like the classic The Office quote, keep it simple, stupid, from Michael Scott. Keep this one. This
All
needs to
in.
lead
All in.
directly to marquee. Those two. Because that is a heavyweight championship match. And it has nothing to do with weight. But I mean that in the sense of like promotionally.
I think you guys would agree with this. Of all the people that WWE let go, Swerve was the biggest mistake.
Easily.
Oh, yes.
Easily.
But, like, all
not
the
even
other
close.
Ones, that's what I'm saying. Like, Swerve is such a unique talent. Danielson should not win this. He's already got a Hall of Fame resume. He doesn't need to win this.
Mm-hmm.
Swerve needs this.
Yep.
The same way Orton doesn't.
I wouldn't even say needs as much as deserves, Anthony, to your point.
Well, if for this tournament to be salvaged, that's why I'm saying needs.
Yeah.
Because right now, if anybody else wins this, it doesn't mean anything. But if Swerve wins this, and I said this to you, Clark, I don't know if it was the Thanksgiving one. I don't remember when it was. But I'm like, the visual of, Nana essentially doing his Paul Heyman, carrying the three belts, or two of the belts, and Swerve's wearing like the new one. I think you could do a lot with this. That's how you get a belt over. The problem is AEW has too many titles. I know it's a separate conversation, but there's too many titles. They lose value, But anyway,
I totally do understand. Let's
Swerve and Max all in. Put that on a poster.
Yes, put it on a poster. Put it on the marquee.
I'm getting my passport soon. I might have to make a flight if that's the main event.
Same. Put that one on the marquee right outside of Wembley. Swerve Strickland versus MJF. AEW World Title.
When he becomes world champ, bro, that moment is gonna be ballistic.
They could do it at Revolution. I mean, there'll be a lot of eyes on that.
Too early. We gotta build. We gotta keep building because I want it to feel like
now
we
gotta build, Clark. Huh? Now we gotta build. We're gonna get to that next
topic. No. We build through the Continental Classic. He's got to drop those titles before he challenges, I think, for the other one, because we don't want 4 titles. Like,
respect.
We've already done that. So that's what I mean. We need the months. But we need it to like fester. I want to have to want it. I already do. But I want everyone else to have to want it as bad as I do. I guess that's probably selfish of me. But with that, let's move on to the next topic. Let's talk about the last of the Continental Classic matches of the night. Jay versus Jay. Lethal versus White. The Battle of Jays.
Yes.
And Jeff Jarrett wasn't even involved. This wasn't double J's, but it was in a sense. Anthony, how did you feel about the match?
Only one Jay could survive. Is that where we're going with this? It is such a shame when you see people like Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal and what they've done in their careers. Jay Lethal is one of the longest reigning Ring of Honor world champions of all time. Held the title twice. You wouldn't know that by AEW's booking. He's a lackey, jobs out. You know, if somebody needed to leave AEW, it's Jay Lethal. I think he needs to go to TNA. I really think he needs to get back to where he was. I don't think he would get it in WWE, but I think if he went back to TNA, I think he could go up the card. Right now, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke what they're doing with him. The whole tournament, all the Ring of Honor people lost. Like literally every single one of them lost. Roosh picked up a win only because of who he was fighting. I'm like, it's realistically like this is a joke, and it's a shame because they were decent matches, but they were so utterly predictable. It took a lot of the pleasure out of it watching it.
I hear you there. Although I will say about Jay Lethal, I think he's at like kind of a mentor spot anyway, and I think he's executed it in a weird way better than like Jeff Jarrett has, where he's put a lot of people over and he's still Jay Lethal.
Because he
It's
can
like
still wrestle.
he plays a more valuable role, I think, on the roster. And like, yes, if the plan were to have Jay Lethal return to like a main event or title picture scene, then yes, exactly what you presented, go back to TNA makes the most sense, right? But I also think at this point in his career, I believe he's producing matches as well, and he's going out there and performing.
He's got a lot more
To
left in the
me,
tank.
like the
To
complaint
be
that
it.
we've had about Jarrett when he's been paired with Lethal is him stealing the spotlight. I've never had that complaint about Jay Lethal, right? Like Jarrett stealing the spotlight from younger wrestlers has been an
Well,
issue. I've
Jarrett's in
never
his
had that issue with Lethal, and he goes and puts over Jay White. It makes sense. He's a legitimate guy that can kind of stand up to him. He loses the match. I don't know that Jay Lethal, though, is a star in the sense of he deserves more than what he's getting at this point in his career.
he's not
We've
getting
seen
anything.
25 years of Jay Lethal.
Yeah, but for a large audience, they didn't. Because how many people really watched Ring of Honor when he was at his peak?
Well, in TNA, I mean,
Well, and
Machismo.
even then, he was Black Machismo. Like he found himself in Ring of Honor, and I really,
Sure. I mean, I get that the Ring of Honor character is
I'm not
where
saying
he
I'm
was
not
the
saying
most.
his
He was
main event
booked
in
the
WrestleMania.
highest in the card, but I don't know that necessarily like Jay Lethal does not deserves, but I think he's in a great spot where he's at.
He
He's
deserves
a
better than
veteran
being
in
a
the locker room.
lackey.
See, I don't see him as a lackey. I actually see him as the one that understands his role in comparison to Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett's out there trying to
Agree
put
to
Jeff
disagree.
Jarrett over and going over as Jeff Jarrett, and he's been aged out, and he's
That's Tony Khan's call.
I mean, at the end of the day. Now let's talk about though this. We got one more topic, which is a big one here. We got Tony Storm and Sky Blue. Controversial. Ben put in the topics. Who was right from yesterday? There's no right or wrong on opinions, Ben. It's a silly question to ask, but we all still have our own. And Shad, I'm going to toss this one to you.
Clark Taylor, my Skip Bayless voice. It's my turn. Nah, I was right. I took a couple laps around the apartment complex today. I do my victory laps, but everything to what I said yesterday kind of resonated to what happened last night, and it's vindictive of what the booking is. So here's my issue. You have a captivating, interesting character like Tony Storm who is going to ride that momentum as long as she can. But at some point, it's going to get stagnant and it's going to stall out, especially if you don't have compelling storylines and you don't feed her competition that makes a champion worth having a championship title reign. Now, yesterday, the argument was why burn this match out on the Dynamite? And I still feel like that's valid because she beat her. This is done. Sky Blue is going back down the pecking order when, in all actuality, the momentum that Sky Blue built, having a storyline with Julia Hart, being in that TNT, TBS title picture, you could have built her up and have been a more viable competitor and had this match maybe at a pay per view like World's End. Because Sky Blue is a great worker. Her character is starting to be crafted. She's honing into it a lot better. You burn that out. We go into this new match, new feud with the same exact repetitive booking. Someone comes in after, they chase them, they run away, slight interactions. It's whack. It's not good. I like Rio. I think Rio is great. I saw Rio become the champion at the first Dynamite in Washington D.C. But Rio is really just booked to be a seasonal opponent for a title match like every few months. And it's not fair to her. It's not fair to Tony Storm. It's not fair to the women's division. They deserve more time. They deserve better written feuds. This is what's going to draw people into it. WWE, I know, is not perfect. We watch NXT all the time. They have a lot more greener talent, but they've made their women's division a lot more compelling than AEW. Main roster, you have main event segments. You got women's war game matches. You got superstars like Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair that are on top of the food chain for WWE. Their gender does not matter because they've been booked in premier ways and they've been put in prominent like storylines. AW can easily do the same thing, and they've done it before. Britt Breaker got over that way for that exact reason. Thunder Rosa, same reason. Tony Storm, same reason as well. I don't think they do a horrible job, but I feel like if you want to bring more importance and you want to make that title more renowned, you got to book it a lot better. So, in all actuality, I was right yesterday. My point was proven, and I'm gonna hit my victory lap again.
Oh, this is a debate for another time because she did get rolled up with the Bob Backlund special, a sunset flip in the middle of the ring. I don't think it. She nearly hit a code blue on the women's world champion.
But
We're talking about a
that could have been a
prospect,
match that would have been at World's End, and that would have been a good. I don't
and it
know,
might
man.
happen again at World's End. But I do hear where you're coming from on the rest of that. This I will say though, let's get into Throwback Thursday because we got a fun throwback topic. That is a debate for another time, Shot, because there is a long discussion to be had about this entire subject. But let's talk about Shawn Michaels and Jannetty. And the barbershop is obviously a sensitive subject for given that I don't really need to go to one that often, considering I've lost the majority of the hair on the top of my head. Thank you, Shad, for joining me on that. It's really not about that. This time, though, they were at the barbershop, and guess what Shawn did? A little super kick and throws the dude's head, Marty Jannetty, right through the glass. Right through the glass. And at that moment, a star was born. A star was born. Anthony, I want you to break down it.
Yeah.
The entire situation for us. Bobby Heenan, I believe, was the MVP of the entire thing when he said Jannetty deserved it. That one tickles me to this day. But I do want to get your thoughts on just the entire subject. You break down the history for us every Thursday.
Yeah, December of 91, they filmed this. It did not air till January. The Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty were part of the Rockers, and a great tag team, and they pigeoned Shawn to become a solo star. Shawn had to turn on Marty to get to that trajectory. And Shawn super kicks Marty and throws Marty through the window. And the famous quote from Bobby Heenan went, "Look at Jannetty, the coward. He's jumping through the window." Shawn, there's no question Shawn Michaels' career is the GOAT. He is the GOAT. He is the greatest that's ever done this. In that ring, no one has ever been better at making himself get over and putting everybody he's in the ring with to a higher plateau than they were before. Ric Flair once said with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, which I disagree with this, but I understand the sentiment. He said WrestleMania 10 was the match that Shawn Michaels wrestled a ladder and Scott Hall happened to be there. Shawn was able to get everybody to a higher place. His match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania, those two, his match with Kurt Angle. But this betrayal all goes back to this. This is the moment that really broke Shawn out. And as an audience, people could relate to it. That's what made it. Because people have had situations where they've had friends that were like family to them and got betrayed. They could relate to that. They could relate to Marty. And they hate Shawn more because they remember their own personal anger towards whoever betrayed them. It's a shame Marty's career really did not pan out. Marty's personal demons have been well documented recently on the dark side of the ring. So, it's a shame, but it's a pivotal moment in this business.
100%. And that's where I'm so, I'm a huge HBK guy. And I think
Mhm,
what's so fascinating is you look at the heel turn happened, right? And then he's
mhm.
paired with Sherry, and that's when you get the famous entrance music, the Heartbreak Kid song that we
The, the
all know,
the
right?
original one was sang by Sherry,
It was
yes.
sang by Sherry, and then he sings it eventually. But then you
Mhm,
get the most unusual matches, VHS,
mhm.
house show, him and Bret Hart in a ladder match,
Yep,
right? Followed by him and Razor, as you mentioned,
yep,
WrestleMania 10,
yep.
followed by him and Diesel. Then you get to 12, and the
Mhm,
way that it was turned,
mhm,
this is something I feel like people forget about Shawn.
mhm.
The start is the heel turn.
Yeah,
By the end of it, we're talking about the boyhood dream. The guy's on his knees
yep.
in the middle of a ring at WrestleMania 12 in Anaheim,
Mhm,
looking up at the sky and
mhm.
thanking as the entire crowd goes wild for the number one babyface in all of wrestling at the time in 1996.
Yep.
And only 2 years later, he played the heel in one of the most pivotal moments in the history of wrestling against Stone Cold Steve Austin with half of a back
The Austin era. Yes.
to start the Attitude Era. The guy is an absolute legend. Um, I understand Marty Jannetty did not have the career afterwards. Shawn, what are your memories though of the barbershop moment and then Shawn's career afterwards?
Bah.
Yep.
GOAT. The GOAT. HBK is the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time for that reason, man. That moment is like the man, we see the deception and heel turning and especially breaking up of tag teams so often in professional wrestling. We just saw it with the bloodline with Jimmy Uso and Jay, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
But nobody can top it like this one. This moment was so iconic and it transcended how everybody does it. And Sean, it's one of those moments where you would want the baby face. You're doing this to create a baby face, but Sean is such a superstar, dude. Like he's got so much of an aura where he's the one that goes over top on this. And the Heartbreak Kid, man, he's one of my favorite, if not like my arguably my favorite character wrestlers of all time in pro wrestling. Like it's just one of those guys that eagerness, not the eagerness, that cockiness that a person has, knowing that your ish don't stink, knowing that you can get the baddest girl in the arena, the iconic theme song, the pizzazz, the coming out on top, hand gliding, and all of that. Like Sean was just really that guy, and it all started from that, man. And that entire segment, that entire moment was so great. Like you just didn't expect it to happen, right?
it
It
was
it,
perfect.
it caught you off guard, and yeah, it was done to a T. Chef's kiss. Everything was perfect about that, and that's one of those things where I feel like if you had a textbook on the history of pro wrestling, that's got its picture on one of the opening chapters in regards to heel turns. So yeah,
It was like a mafia movie. Shawn had earned his spot over the course of years, but he became a made man in one day.
without
Yes.
a doubt,
It
without a doubt.
was it was like a mafia movie. I mean, you think about it looking back, and between the time in which he did that and then main evented in a 60-minute Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12
Mhm.
against Bret Hart. During that time, he held the Intercontinental title. He main evented a WrestleMania. Well, not main evented, but co-main evented a
Yeah.
WrestleMania against Diesel, right?
Mhm.
He had the ladder match with Razor During this time, we talk about like really good stretches for pro wrestlers. That 4-year stretch without a title, in my eyes, is the greatest in the history of wrestling. Nobody has elevated themselves to the top of the industry from one turn in a tag team that at the time we forget, the Rockers never won the WWE tag team titles.
I believe, didn't they win it? But
At a house show, and it didn't count.
The top rope broke, so they said it didn't count.
Didn't count.
Yeah.
Now, the one last thing I want to say is when you think of segments that they've done in wrestling, the interview segments, the Piper's Pits, the barbershop, there are 3 that stick out to this day that are defining ones. Piper with Snuka, with the coconut. Andre challenging Hogan on Piper's Pit. And this one, the barbershop with Shawn throwing Marty through the window. I think those are the 3 most defining ones. Of all the ones that we've seen, those are probably the most iconic, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I think you're spot on there. But with that does bring us to the end of the show. Happy Thursday, everybody. We will be back tomorrow, different time, but same place. We'll be at 8 over in the UK, 3 p.m. Eastern. That's noon Pacific, 9 in Hawaii. And then Saturday, tune in for the daily broadcast, same time as tomorrow. But more importantly, also check out, well, not more importantly, equal importance, check out Off the Air with me, Shad, and Drizzy immediately following. Why am I blanking on the name of the Connecticut?
Stand and Deliver.
Just not Stand and Deliver. It starts with the D. Deadline.
My bad.
NXT Deadline. Thank you. Yes. I'm sorry. Deliver. Everyone have a great Thursday. Thank you so much on behalf of me, Anthony, Shad. Thank you, everyone. And we'll talk to y'all soon.